Do you hate the thought of working past 55 or 60? Do you hate not being able to live the life you deserve today? Do you hate not knowing what your financial future looks like? It's time to stop doing what you hate. Here's your host, Mr. Harold Green.
Aloha, everybody. This is Harold Green with Bright Tree Financial Group, and it is time to stop doing what you hate. I got an interesting show lined up for you guys today, and I just started something new, and it's going to be part of our Successful Professional series. And basically what we're going to be doing is bringing you different professionals in different fields, people that are successful at what they do, and then also people who love what they do. And this is a twofold type of thing. Number one is to educate you, the client that's listening in, and also to educate potential clients and people that are out there listening in, but also to educate students, kids that are in high school, maybe that, are thinking about what they want to do with their life. And this is a good thing too, because you get to hear information from professionals that are already in the field, along with learning about finances and any other type of thing that I bring to you. Because a lot of times, the only exposure that our students get is what they see on TV or what they read on the internet, and they're not really communicating with the professionals in that field. So without further delay, I bring to you today Mr. Matt Shanlian, Division President of Primary Residential Mortgage up in Western Ohio. So Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how are you? Hey Harold.
Hey, welcome, man. Welcome. So today I'm going to be interviewing Matt. Matt's a mortgage banker, and Matt's going to be talking to you guys about, why he got into the field of mortgage banking and different things like that. But Matt, I want you to start off by just kind of giving us an update as to what's been going on in the mortgage industry over the last maybe 3 months or so with this whole COVID-19 thing. All right.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. As this this world has really been just in a status of change and new endeavors with this COVID, with the pandemic, and how our stock market has reacted to everything. The mortgage market similarly has been rocky over the last 3-4 months. Really, even taking it past those 3 months, starting around Thanksgiving of last year, really early fourth quarter of last year, we saw the interest rate environment start dropping, and so interest rates were heading in a positive direction, at least for the consumer. And they kind of hit the basement right before this COVID pandemic popped up and has kind of changed everything that's going on in our industry. And so what it did was it created a lot of confusion initially because we weren't sure the ripple effects of everything that's going to happen. One of the good things that happened was Fannie and Freddie this time, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the two GSEs that buy most of the mortgages that are sold, instead of doing what they did in 2008, which was just say, hey, everything's going to be fine, don't worry, this is just a small blip in the screen, this is this will pass, we'll be back to normal soon. They were actually really proactive. And what I mean by proactive is they started to alter requirements. They even took away products for a short period of time just to make sure that people were safe. We were writing good loans. We weren't putting people in situations that were going to become untenable for them if they'd lost their job. And so they started to really restrict loans in the short term just to make sure that what was being sold during the beginning of the pandemic, when we weren't sure what it was, the loans that were being sold were kind of the no-brainer loans. Things that were borderline were being basically shelved for a little bit. And so as an industry, that's a really great leader, I believe a leadership role that they put into this and got us to, a safe place. The salesman into me, sometimes gets frustrated because you want to close loans, and we did, but we had to kind of change on the fly a lot of things we were able to do, not able to do, or having extra regulation around things like verifying employment and verifying income because people are getting furloughed or taken to part-time or sometimes even laid off. So it's definitely been a disruption to my industry, but rates have stayed low. We've stayed very productive. It's just one of those things that really was unforeseen in our economy and in our country, but our marketplace really, I think, did a pretty good job avoiding major disaster.
Right. So they basically wanted to bring safety this time around versus letting things get out of hand like last time in 2008. And I think you and I both can say there's a big difference between what happened last time and what's happening this time. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. And we're still pretty much in the middle of it. I mean, I'm not going to play economist or doctor. I don't think we're out of completely in the clear. I think
Right.
at this last, I'd say 30 days, we've really seen a lot of things open up, and
Right.
we haven't seen any kind of outbreak yet. So assuming that we take the nice slow steps of reopening, we don't have any kind of, relapse, we'll call it. I think what they did way better. I mean, we're talking about right now we have over 20% unemployment, and foreclosure rates haven't really moved yet.
Right.
And last time, I mean, we had foreclosure rates in the double digits, and boy, does that affect values of homes, and it affects the economy as a whole. So that may end up happening in a little smaller, bit in quarter 3, quarter 4. We'll see when these furloughed employees come back and how many of them get to come back. But I think as far as on lending regulation, they really tightened things up, which was a really smart move when things got a little bit tedious.
Right. They definitely wanted to protect people. And so I'm going to get into something a little later on in the show about, what people can do to protect themselves and to protect the equity in their home, because I think that's going to be a very big issue going down the road. But before I get into some of that stuff, Matt, I want you to talk about your educational background and then how you actually got into the business that you're in right now.
Yeah. So as far as educational background, high school graduate, of course, went to college, went to school in Virginia, Liberty University, which is actually an evangelical Christian university. So I was not fit to be a pastor. I never was going to be one, but all my roommates ended up being them. I was the only guy that got a finance degree. And always loved, finance. Even in high school, took classes in finance and accounting and really enjoyed it. My father has been a financial advisor before he owned a mortgage company for 30 years. Kind of grew up around the industry, got uncles that do it. I've just always been interested in finances. And I happened to graduate college in 2008, which, if you can remember back then, was about the worst year you could ever try to graduate college with a finance degree. It was right in the beginning of the upcoming recession. And so my options were pretty limited. And luckily, my dad had a mortgage company, and it was not the plan for me to work there, or at least my plan. But when I graduated, I kind of looked around and I thought, I could go to grad school, but I was kind of at that stage just over it. As far as I didn't really want to go get my MBA, maybe come back later. But at that stage, I was just burnt out with school. And so I moved home and started working for my father full time. And, he did not give me any kind of throne to come home to.
Right.
I was answering phones. I was making copies. I was learning the business from the inside out or the bottom up. My first 6 months was filled with insurance calls and VOE calls and, answering the phone. I was nowhere near a sales opportunity for a long time.
Right. So you had to hustle and learn it from the ground up.
Yeah. Well, the big thing for my dad was, I think he wanted to test me. He was like, you're not getting a free ride.
Yep.
And so if you're going to come in here and just be like the boss's kid, like you're going to wash out because I'm never going to give you anything important. But over time, I think I gained his trust and started talking and the big thing was he let me travel. And that's, where I met you, Harold, was at these conferences my dad would speak at. And, it started with me just going and, setting up the table. And then over the years, he would start, hey, you know what? Here's 10 minutes. Go, you get to talk these 10 minutes of the hour. And now we're at the point really where I speak predominant amount of time. And my dad's in his mid-60s and, of course, still our president with me. But he has allowed me to really take the reins as far as the marketing of the company and speaking. And I'm really, of course, forever grateful for that opportunity. But yeah, I was lucky in one sense to have an in for a job. But once I got that job, I was not given anything fun for a long time. I had to grind out about a year to 16 months before he'd even let me take my licensing exam, because he just didn't want to waste money on somebody that was just going to leave as soon as another job came in.
Right.
Now I look at it, it's the only profession I ever want to work in. I feel lucky that I've gotten to know, people like Harold and financial advisors all over the country. I have friends in almost every state, it seems like, and it's been really a blessing to have this company for sure.
Right. So I have this phrase, Matt, you can't shine until you grind.
Yeah.
And for the young people out there, you got to put in the hard work, the blood, the sweat, the tears. You got to hustle, and then eventually everything is going to turn and go your way. But you definitely have to put in the work. So, Matt, degree in finance. Let's talk a little bit about the different types of loans that are out there. You got the 10-year loan, the 15-year loan, you got the 30-year loan, the 20-year loan, you got the adjustable rate mortgages, you got the 1-year ARM, the 3-year ARM, the 7-year ARM, the 10-year ARM. A lot of people are confused when it comes time to take out a mortgage. And one of the things that I love about my clients that are out there, for the most part, and anytime they want to take on a new loan or take on a new asset, they always give me a call and say, Harold, what do you think? They send me over copies of the loan agreements, and I get to read through all these different things and to help protect them. Matt, so if you could give people a word of advice in regards to what they should be looking for in regards to taking on a loan, just have at it.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll hearken lending. The environment of lending sometimes turns into almost like car buying.
Right.
And, one of the things that I do with my company and my loan officers is the word no is very powerful.
Yep.
And not the client saying no to us, actually us telling the client no.
Yep.
And because a lot of times what people do, the average American family refinances or buys a home every about 7 to 8 years on average. And I would say probably half of them didn't need to do it.
Say that again, Matt. That's a very important thing you just said. Say that one more time, because I don't know if people caught the gravity of what you just said. Say that one more time.
So the average American family is going to refinance or purchase a home every 7 to 8 years.
7 to 8 years.
That's just the average. And so I would say in my opinion, about half of them probably didn't need to do it. It wasn't a need-based thing. A lot of them either did it because they were bored.
Yep.
They did it because they got sold, meaning guy called them out of the blue and said, hey, I'll do this and that, skip a month's payment. And we could do, and really when you play out the costings of the loan, it's more of a sideways move. And some people it's kind of like people who don't need to buy a car, but they go to a car dealership, and even though it doesn't make sense, they can make the payment, so they do it. And we see a lot of people who just like to be the part of the excitement of refinancing. I've heard Rachel Lowe, should I do something? And I'll look at somebody with like a 3.75 rate or 3.875 rate. And it's like, to do all this paperwork, to have this cost, to go to 3.5%. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know that's you being okay with a little bit higher rate, but when you add in the cost, when you add in maybe, hey, they're in their mid 50s or
right,
ready to downsize when their kids go to school or whatever, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So a lot of times the power of no for my loan officers that I want to always tell them is to say, just if you want to be that advisor's strategic partner, it isn't about every loan. It's about the relationship. And so being honest, saying, hey, you know what, after we run the figures, I don't know if they save enough. Here's what we found. Of course, if they want to do it, we can't stop them. But a lot of times we'll say, hey, you know what, I don't know if there's a great value for this. I know you want to do something. You may be better served to wait a year or two. And being able to say that's really important, because a lot of times people get sold by, and I don't want to name names, but there's some big companies out there that are pretty aggressive in how they sell loans.
Right.
And so loans on just, dropping your rate an eighth, but skipping 2 mortgage payments and through the closing. And that's really an ancillary benefit of a refinance to me. It's like telling somebody they should go have surgery because they get a vacation day.
Right.
Like that don't have unneeded surgery just because you don't want to work that week. Like there's a lot of pain and recovery and scar tissue that builds up, like closing costs, that you just don't need unless you need to do it. Now, if somebody needs to do it, if they need to consolidate debt, we'll work with Harold. We're paying for trying to figure out college or retirement. I'm all for it. Of course, I'm a salesman. But when somebody comes to us, and Harold, he knows it. I've talked to him a couple of times. He's shown me things that are like, they're working with this mortgage bank. I can beat that rate, but even if I did, it still doesn't make sense for them. You need to tell them to just hold off completely.
Right.
And that's really, more people need to hear that. And so these are big loans. They're 30-year loans, or 25-year loans, and 20-year loans, and sometimes 15-year loans. These are not things to be done lightly. And I think people sometimes get sold on the wrong value proposition, we'll call it.
Right. And Matt, you've worked with my clients here in Hawaii, and what is about the average loan size you've seen? It's been around what, $600,000, $800,000?
Yeah, in that range completely.
These are some big numbers, people. And anytime you're refinancing loans of that magnitude or purchasing of that magnitude, you definitely want to sit down and make sure that you don't end up in the situation where you're house rich and then your income poor. And because of that, Matt, talk to people about the reverse mortgage and what that whole crazy thing is all about.
Yeah, reverse mortgages has been around a long time. I would say in the lending world, reverse mortgages are about as misunderstood as like modified endowment, cash value life insurance is
right.
In the financial planning world, because it is different. It is set up, different than other things. It does have some fees to it. But what a reverse mortgage really does is it solves a lot of problems for people who are underfunded in their retirement, meaning, their pension took a hit, or, maybe they had to retire early because of an injury or something unforeseen. And now they're struggling to have the money to make it to the finish line. But in Hawaii, a lot of people are blessed with a great amount of home equity because values, you live on a beautiful island and it's very desirable. And so values are always going to be high.
Right.
And so we look at reverse mortgages as a case-by-case basis for families because it really is a meeting of a need and not meeting of a sale. And we really want to make sure that we are placing people in the proper loans so that they can either extend retirement, protect other assets, or just be set up so that they don't have to retire out of place. They can retire in place. And so, the reverse mortgage for me, it's a passion. I actually spent a lot of time training other loan officers on it because I do feel like we as an industry should be very good at the product, meaning we should know who should get one and we should know who shouldn't get one. And so it's very per case basis, but it's a product that I have a great passion for.
Right.
Because we have used it for people in $2 million houses and $40,000 houses. And the benefit for both has been just as important.
Yeah, I know you did one for one of my clients probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and it's probably been one of the best things, for them because their situation, it was very complicated, and so it fit perfectly for them, but I'm just not going to recommend it for everybody that's sitting out there. And the next thing, Matt, I want to kind of get into is this train of thought of, people who say, I hate debt, I don't want a mortgage, I want it all gone, I want it gone before I retire because that's what I was told to do. And as you know, I built my own retirement planning system called Rapid Retire that basically helps people retire 7 to 10 years sooner than they otherwise would, just based on how we do things. And one of the biggest things we have in there is we talk about creating income. We talk about income that can service debt versus completely paying off debt. And so if you can kind of talk to the two trains of thought out there of, I should have my house completely paid off before I retire, or you know what? I don't care about my house being paid off because I have so much money coming in that it's not going to hurt me. And as a matter of fact, I have more coming in that's going to last me longer because I took that extra money and then invested it in the market versus threw it in my house. So can you kind of talk to those two individuals out there?
Oh, wow. This is such a big topic. And I really want to be able to explain this in a way that doesn't come off as a sale or anything, but really as a heart position.
Right.
I go back to my college professor my senior year in our global economics class. He was a really kind of an odd guy, and he was awesome. But he would always make us at the top of every paper write 2 phrases: I love leverage and I love liquidity. And his basic thing was, I want to drill in those 2 phrases in your mind. And it worked because 15 years later, I'm still talking about it.
Yep.
His hypothesis was most businesses, and we can even transfer that into people, are under leveraged and I won't say liquefied. They have less than sufficient liquidity and they're under leveraged, meaning they don't have cash on the sideline in case something happens.
Right.
liquidity. When the heater goes out, when the roof has a leak, when something like that happens, what do? Their savings account is Chase, Capital One, and American Express.
Right.
And so they don't have the liquidity to handle those needs, because the other issue is they're under leveraged. And what that means is, yes, they have a 401k that's funded, and that's awesome. I'm not against 401ks. But if all your money is there, they're not diversified, and they're trying to pay their house down,
Yep.
you're paying money to prepay something that the value of it is controlled completely by your neighbors.
That's right.
And I don't feel like that's a really responsible thing. What I mean by that is this. Your value of your house, I know we watch HGTV and we see those two tall twin guys come and rip out walls and put new kitchens in, or you got your Chip and Joe stuff and everything looks like a farmhouse now. Everybody loves this stuff.
Right.
But in the real world evaluation, that stuff doesn't carry the value you put into it. We have people all the time say, I put $100,000 in my kitchen.
That's right.
In my living room, and the value only gave me $20,000 on my appraisal.
That's right.
And so that stuff doesn't have as big of a value as you think. What has the biggest value is, and what we're going to see, I think, in the next few months to years, my next door neighbor got laid off. And instead of foreclosing, he sold his house. Now, his house really is worth $800,000, but because he wants to get out, he sold it for $720,000. Just because he wanted to be aggressive and have a low price, because he needed that money to stay alive.
Right.
That's going to directly impact your value of your home. And so why we feel like paying your home off early, you're paying extra down on your house, is a risky, what I'll say is it's a less efficient use of your money.
Right.
I'm not here to tell you if you do that, you're wrong, or if you do that, you're going to screw something up.
Right.
But what it is you're under leveraged. So what would happen is, this is a real life story. We had a dear friend of ours that goes to our church, and he ascribed to one of the talking heads, financial advisors that's like, on the radio all the time. And it's like, pay everything off, eat rice and beans until you're debt free, and then you can whatever. And so him and his wife were really strict on it, and, commend him. That's great. And so he's in a 15-year mortgage, and he was paying extra on it even after that. And, just everything. And what happened, he had about $9,000 left on his mortgage. He got laid off.
Wow.
And his wife was a homemaker.
Wow.
And so what happened in that situation is he actually came to us, and he's a great guy. And was like, hey, not for nothing, I just, I got laid off, been at the same, company for 20-something years. And I only owe like $8,000 or $9,000. Is there any way I can just like get a line of credit or something for $30,000 just to, get me through? I got a little severance package, but it may take me a while to get another job because, I was a C-level employee at a company.
Right.
You don't just go Indeed and get a, executive vice president job in 2 weeks. It takes a little while for those people to get placed. And the sad thing was, of course, because he didn't have any income and no job prospects, I couldn't do a loan for him. So that's just a great picture of being under leverage, because, he had a $300,000 house in Ohio. That's a nice house. And he only he had 94% equity position in his house, but he had no access to it because he had no leverage, liquidity. And so while he had this almost paid off house, he could see the finish line. Something bad happened, unforeseen happened. And now that threw him into, he had to get credit cards to pay for stuff until you get a job.
And you know what, Matt? Even if he would have paid the house off, he would have been in the same boat.
I couldn't have helped him anyway.
You don't have a mortgage payment, but yet you don't have any money sitting on the side, And so that's why I think it's very important for people to understand that when they start taking out these loans, or when they start listening to people on the radio, on the TV, on the internet. I did a show, don't take advice from the internet. Like, you have to be careful who you talk to. And if you're not, basing your loans on your long-term financial plan, and you're not creating the proper amount of leverage or liquidity, which in the Rapid Retire program, we have something called the 4A cash reserves: adequate, accessible, after tax, always there. If you want to know more about Rapid Retire, please go to my website, retirenow.retirewow.com. Download the Game Changer form, download Rapid Retire brochure, and then I'll be in touch with you guys. But, putting all of this money into places where, I think you were saying it earlier, Matt, you're putting money in places where the value is controlled by what your neighbors do. Mm-hmm. For me, that's a very uncomfortable position. I'll tell you what I did for myself. I think we bought our place at 515, and it went up to almost $800,000. And when it did, I got the biggest line of credit that I could. and I took the monies out and I put it in my life insurance policy. And I did that so that if the values ever started to go backwards, I had access to the money, to pay the mortgage if anything were to happen. And I think back in 2008, people had all this equity in their homes, and then, the market just went backwards on them. And so some of them went from a positive position to a negative position. And so you really got to understand what you are getting yourself into when you get into these types of loans. So Matt, I definitely appreciate you talking about that, because that was a big one. So, and wrapping up, in regards to buying a home or buying a condo or buying an investment property, is now a good time, or should people kind of like sit on their cash a little bit and look for other things versus property? Tell me what you think about that.
So, it really depends, because you're talking about a couple different types of people. Like if you're looking to buy a house, and you just got married, or maybe you just get into your career and you're looking for that first house, and you find something you love and it's in your price range, I say you go get it. That's something that I really wouldn't. I don't think the market's going to shift that much where it's like, oh my goodness, we're going to have 40% drops in value, and if you buy in June instead of December, you really made a mistake. I don't see that. What I do think is there is going to be, on the investor side of things, I think you're going to see some opportunity in the purchase of the investment properties, those 1 to 4 unit properties, condos, things of that nature, because I feel like the people who may be overly diversified may dump real estate in the short term if they're losing either renters or they're just over leveraged.
Right.
In other places, they can sell real estate and help them fund other areas of their business. We're seeing a lot of our guys that I work with that are real estate investors. They're kind of getting in that mode of like, I got to get back out there and really be cash positive, because I think some properties may pop up that you can take down quickly at good value premiums, where really in the last 5 years, it was pretty tough to buy a house at a good value premium with everything just kind of soaring up and up and up and up. You're buying at the height of the market always. And so I think in the investment side of things, I think opportunity is going to show up here, not right away. I think the ripple effect of the forbearance stuff and some of these economic things that we've done, like these bailouts, these furloughs, people not coming back, unemployment being high, I think there's an opportunity there where some homes are going to go up for auction, not in a big way back then, but there's going to be some opportunities. I always caution people who are primary home buyers that like to, I like to look at the sheriff's sale, or I like to look at this. A lot of times those sales have to be really cash heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it's kind of like going to the auto auction. It's as is. You don't know if that house, like, you don't get to look at it. You don't know if there's water in the basement. It's like you go buy a car because it rolls past you at an auto auction. You don't know if they pulled that out of the lake 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And so you got to be buyer beware really big there. And an investor is knowing, understands how houses are built a little bit better, maybe even can do the work themselves, or has really great teams to help, rehab properties. I know we love the HGTV. I watch all the time. I'm not bagging on it. They have those programs. It's like, I bought this house for 12 cents and I put 15 cents in it, and now it's worth $10. And it's like, those people are professionals. Right. They're obviously very good at their job. They're on TV. 90% of the time, that's not you, Mr. Regular homeowner. So the it's really it's strikeout home run. Sometimes it's never middle of the road. You can really hit a home run if you get lucky, but you could also have a money pit that destroys you, because you find out that electrical's bad and plumbing's bad and foundation bad, and that's $75,000 before you even knock on a wall or paint a cabinet. And so I would say, if you're looking to buy a home, honestly, what you need to do before anything is, and my advice is, figure out in your budget, talk to your planner like Harold. Don't look at loan amounts. Look at monthly payments. Look at what comes out of your bank every month. What can you tolerate where you're still saving? You still got a couple pennies to go out to eat and do the fun things. It fits in your budget comfortably. If that number is $1,800, or if that number is $2,500, then we start building out what kind of loan you can get for that. If you start looking at, I want to buy a $450,000 house, you start making concessions in your budget to make it so that you can do that. Well, maybe we won't all go out to eat. Well, maybe I'll I'll give less to my retirement. And, but in a couple of years I'll get a raise, so I'll even it out. If you fall in love with the property, I say fall in love with the budget first. Fall in love with the payment and find something that is in that line. You're going to feel a lot better. And I know a lot of younger people, it used to be you bought a starter home, you bought a second home, maybe you built your third home, and then you sold it and downsized. And it seems to be the generation, millennials and even past millennials, they kind of want to skip that starter home step a lot of times.
Right. They want to go right to.
They're both of them are working, and the budget's a little higher, and they got campaign tastes, and just like you said earlier, Harold, don't blow things up. Don't be house poor,
right,
or house rich and budget poor, whatever the term is. Make sure that the payment is what you fall in love with, and then find a house that fits that payment, not the other way around. Because the other way around a lot of times ends up with people just overbuying, and then that's stress. And how many times have you seen it, Harold?
A lot.
In the family, especially in the marriage. Stress in every area and bills are expensive. Bills are high, and it's a stressful thing.
Well, Matt, it sounds like you love what you do. You don't hate it.
No.
You love it. And tell me why you love. My whole show is about stop doing what you hate. Do what you love. Tell me why you love what you do.
The corny canned answer is, you get to help people, help families.
Yep.
It is true. The other answer that's really great about it is I get a chance to earn a decent living. I'm not a millionaire, or I don't drive fancy cars or do crazy things, but this job affords me a lifestyle that allows my family, my kids, my wife gets to stay at home. Those things are important to me. Those things may not be important to you. You may not, be somebody who wants to marry anybody. But when I look at why I love what I do, is I do get to help people every day.
Right.
I get to solve problems, or I get to help people buy houses, and that's a really great feeling. But my biggest thing is, I work a little bit differently than most guys in the mortgage industry with all my licenses, and the fact that I'm sitting outside of Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm talking to Harold in Honolulu, is that I get to meet people. I get to have friendships with guys like you, Harold, and get to hear about your kids and where they're going to college and their careers. And, I have friends that, I'm always checking in on their kids' sports, and, they're referral partners, if you want to call them that, but really it transcends that over time, because we together get to help solve problems for families. And when you connect and you get to find a relationship with somebody like that, and advisors like that I get to work with, it's exciting to go to work, because I know that, the 50 or 60 families that you work with a year, any given time, we're doing some really great things. And I get to kind of dive bomb into all those different areas throughout the country and help advisors. That's so great. And, I like to get up and do something, go to work every day. And this is a job that really affords me that. I feel lucky through this pandemic that we didn't have any job interruptions. We worked hard through it and got everything, kept working, and was able to not have any disruptions there, except for kind of working from home for a little while. But just having a heart of appreciation is what I have for this industry and for my job, because, I really would not want to be doing anything else. I wouldn't even want to do what Harold does. I actually feel like I'm specifically built to work with Harold, not be Harold. And I feel great about that.
Well, it's a team effort, Matt, and I'm glad to have you as part of my team. And what I'd like for the people out there to understand is that teamwork makes the dream work. I know that's a corny thing everybody says. Teamwork does propel the dream. When we're sitting here putting together the financial plan, Matt's doing the mortgages. If we're pulling monies out of the house to help pay for college, the students have their part to play. And the parents have their part to play. We're all a team, and we're all in this together. And I don't think anybody out there has to go at it alone. But if you're a student out there and you're thinking about different careers, I'm a financial planner, financial advisor, fiduciary advisor. I produce this podcast show every single week. And, I really enjoy what I do. And my path has allowed me to, meet up with Matt. I know his dad. I know his mom. I know his sisters. I know his uncle. We've gotten together. We've had dinner. We've traveled. We played golf in Mexico, right, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely.
Played golf in Mexico. And so these are great careers, but you have to grind. So you can't shine until you grind. I know I just talked about some of the shine of it, and Matt did too, but there's work that you have to put into it. So with all that being said, Matt, I want to thank you very much for joining me today in the successful professional series, Do What You Love and Not What You Hate. And so thank you very much for joining the show. If anybody out there has questions, they can get in contact with me through the website. If you want to talk to Matt about a mortgage, get in contact with me and I'll forward you Matt's information, and he'll take a look at things for you and see how he can help you out. And Matt's licensed in pretty much all 50 states, with the exception of Alaska or somewhere like that, or
New York State is the only one.
New York State, and I don't blame you. I'm not licensed in New York either. It's a very tough state. But thanks, Matt, again for joining us. And again, until next time, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Let's get it.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.